What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Craft Shop. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I was reached out to make a pair of custom wedding bands out of Damascus steel. Now, I've never even attempted to make rings or any jewelry for that matter, and I made that clear, but the client is willing to trust me with the project, so let's see how this goes. For these Damascus rings, I'll be using 01 tool steel and 15N20. Here, I'm just degreasing them with acetone. You can see I've ground the edges of the steel in different directions to help tell them apart. Now to get them welded up, and to make this easier on myself, I'm going to be using a vise. And I'm just using some flux cord wire on this. Here you can see I've attached a handle to the billet.
Oh yes, it is it.
And now for a pretty exciting tool delivery. Actually, just as I was about to forge this up, I got something in the mail that changed my process quite a bit. Brand new forging press. I've been anxious to get my hands on one of these for quite some time, and I'm so excited to finally have one. This is going to make a huge difference in my production and be a huge help in setting billets and forge welding in general. This is a 24-ton press from Riverside Machine, so I suppose I'll be using this today. I got some practice in prior to actually using it, and the reason it's still on the pallet is because it's 800 pounds. So I'll be dealing with that another time. So we'll go ahead and get the billet warmed up. And I'm just using borax as a flexing agent. And here we go with the new press. I got that billet up to welding temperature, and the press is just going to work on it. Compressing this billet by hand would be taking so much more time and energy. It's definitely very convenient to have this machine. Alright, now over to the anvil. I'm just working in the edges now to create a small bow on either surface. This will help to prevent cold shots and unwanted folds when I compress it from the other side. Using the step or table on the anvil can help keep the billet steady when hammering the edges. And here I am just working the billet to size on the press. I'm drawing it out to prepare it for flipping. So now I've got this drawn out to a pretty good size. I'm going to clean up the surface a bit with the flap disc. Now I'll be partially cutting through the center with a cutoff wheel. And back into the forge again. I'm flexing the surface to prevent any scale up prior to folding. Alright, at the anvil, I'm just going to get this folded up. And now I'll hit welding temperatures and then I move to the press to set the weld. And just like before, it worked great in the press. I'm just working towards getting this billet to the right width and thickness for the rings. Alright, so I skipped a step in the process. I let the steel anneal once I had flattened it. I then drilled a hole and widened it up with a step bit. This ring will be a size 11 and I'll need to get this hole a little bit larger. This was very tough to get through on the drill press even after a couple annealing cycles. So rather than just burn through my drill bits, I'm going to be forging a drift to help spread the opening. I'm forging the drift from a piece of round stock 01 tool steel. This rod is actually fairly close to the size I'm shooting for, which makes things easier. While keeping the steel angled to the face of the anvil, I start tapering the drift to a point. The longer the taper, the easier it is to drift through. A very abrupt taper can ruin your workpiece if you're not careful. Now I'll just give this a real dirty quench and go ahead and start drifting. I'm drifting this into the hole in my anvil. This is a farrier's anvil, and most that I see don't have this hole, but something this size could be drifted through a hardy hole as well. Now that it's drifted, I'm just flattening the workpiece. And now I'll trim it away from the rest of the steel. So it's back in the forge, and now I'm letting it anneal. And I just purchased this ring sizing kit from Amazon. I think it was about 12 bucks. I'm using a sanding bit on my Dremel tool to slowly widen the hole to size. I'm checking it constantly with the ring sizer to make sure that I don't overdo it. And I'm actually stopping just shy of the measurement to account for some material loss during hand sanding and polishing. Alright, now over to the belt sander. I'm going to start shaping the outside profile of the ring. I'm starting at about 60 grit and moving up as I get close to size. The slack portion of my 1x30 grinder actually worked great to help convex the outside of the ring. Okay, now on to hand sanding, and there was quite a bit of hand sanding. I started around 150 grit and got up to about 220 before a test etch. And here's that test etch. I'm cleaning the ring with some acetone to make sure that it's grease free. And now into the ferric chloride. So this is after just a few minutes in the solution, and as you can see, it really brought out that pattern well. Now I'm just working the rings up to about 800 grit where I'll be doing the final etch. I want to ensure that the rings are clean prior to etch. I'm just using soap and water and following that up with some acetone. Now it's time to soak them in the acid. And there we have it. With a higher grit paper, I'll be lightly passing over the high spots on the etch. This will help to better reveal the Damascus pattern. And I'll also clean them up at this point. And there they are, all finished up. Well, thank you all so much for watching. That was a very fun project. I've never even attempted to make rings of any sort, and I think these came out great. I really love the look of the very subtle low layer Damascus count, and it's a great feeling knowing that these rings will be cherished for the rest of someone's life. Please leave any comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.